Hello, Somerville. My name is Ed Halloran. I am your host this evening. Welcome to the Somerville Labor Show, and here's what we have tonight for you. Very, very important. We have the equal pay for women in comparable jobs. And this is something that's very, very interesting and very near and dear to me because it resonates with all of us. And one thing I want to do right from the onset, I want to talk about an article that John Becker wrote from Sendelli and Grace. They're a law firm, a union law firm, and they represent many, many unions, in particular police unions as well. On July 1st, 2018, a new comprehensive pay equity law took effect in Massachusetts that seeks to eradicate the wage disparities between women and men working in the Commonwealth. To understand the background of the significant change in the law, it is necessary to go back to 1945, when Massachusetts became the first state in the nation to enact a law prohibiting employers from paying men and women differently for comparable work. Under the new version of the Massachusetts Equal Pay Act, MEPA, that's the acronym, nearly every employer in Massachusetts, except certain domestic and agricultural workers and federal employees, must pay men and women the same in all aspects of wages and benefits in their jobs, which require comparable skill, effort, and responsibility, and are performed under the same working conditions. So this is something that's very, very important. I have a very special guest. We're going to get into this. We're going to discuss this. As always, before I introduce my guest for the show, please watch this brief video narrated by Maura Healey, State Attorney General.
Equal pay is the law in Massachusetts, but for too long, the gender pay gap has cost women billions in lost wages. On July 1st, a new law took effect that makes sure women are paid the same as men. Here's how it works. Equal pay for comparable work. If your job requires similar skill, effort, and responsibility as someone else, you can't be paid less because of your gender. Salary history. From now on, employers cannot ask about your salary history before making a job offer. That's a big deal. For most women, the gender pay gap starts early in their career, and too often employers make salary decisions based on what you were paid before. We're ending that cycle of discrimination. The last point is simple. The best way to stop discriminatory pay is to talk about it. Now the law protects your right to talk about your wages with your coworkers. So please, share this video. Make sure everyone knows about their rights under the new equal pay law. And if you face discrimination at work, we can help. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video with Maura Healey. My guest for the show, let me give you a little quick background, some history here. Communications consultant and has advocated on behalf of this historical law for women. She has been involved with political campaigns since she was a child. She has worked as an organizer, a pollster, a campaign manager. She ran for a political office at age 20. I have to know what that is. And while she was still in college, she was a co-founder of a nationwide campaign, Uncoke, on her campus, focused on corporate money and higher education. She has been consulting for the past several years and works with clients on their communication strategies, public relations, and social media, and was appointed to the board of the Massachusetts National Organization of Women in 2015. And after a brief hiatus, she transitioned to their Political Action Committee at the beginning of the year. So, Kalin Jordan, here you are. Finally, yes, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you on the show. I have to ask that question in political office. What was it?
I was state representative.
State representative at the age of 20?
Yes, I was in college. It was in New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire. How did you fare?
I did not win.
All right.
No.
All right. Did you get into a debate? Did you get that far?
We never had debates. It was there were 4 candidates running on each side, and the party wanted young people to run, especially in my district, which skews a lot older. It's a lot more retired people, and the party asked, and I decided to step up. So I would travel back and forth between school and.
Sounds familiar. It's kind of how I may have became president of my union, and how many other presidents do it, because they always feel that someone has to do it, and it takes a lot of courage, and I commend you for doing that. So tell the viewers about your experience on the equal pay law and what part you played in order to get the public's attention to support it.
So Massachusetts National Organization for Women has been an integral part of advocating for equal pay for years. They were original members of the Comparable Pay Coalition in the 90s, and then founding members of the Equal Pay Coalition that helped to co-sponsor this bill. And my role in all of this was I was the VP of basically essentially organizing. So I would organize volunteers. I would recruit volunteers, and then I would help organize things like lobby days, phone banks, anything to get the word out there to legislators, to the public, to voters.
So we're basically lobbying, in a sense, a little bit?
Lobbying, but in different capacities. So it could be lobbying at the State House, but it could also be, talking to voters and letting them know that this is a critical issue, and we needed their support in order to get attention, and also to get media attention as well.
Okay, so you also worked on a PAC. Nobody knows what a PAC is. Well, some people do, if you don't know. It's a political action committee that supported this new law. Can you tell me in what capacity and what you were able to accomplish on that committee?
So the Political Action Committee, I only started working with them this year, and there's a pretty key difference between what a Political Action Committee does and what the board does in any organization. So what the board is able to do on an organization like Mass Now is advocate for legislation. And there's a lot of legalities that tell you what a board can do and what a PAC can do. So the board and our board in 2016, which I served on, we would go into the State House and we would advocate for legislation. We would push legislation like the Equal Pay Bill. The Political Action Committee, our role is specifically to find and endorse candidates. So the PAC is not involved at all in legislation, and there has to be a very clear distinction between the two.
So you mentioned Mass Now, and you seem very excited about Mass Now and pay equality. So tell me a little bit about Mass Now. Have you been involved with pay inequality for years when it comes to with Mass Now?
Since I was on the board of Mass Now, I've been involved with pay equality, and it's been an issue that I've been concerned with for a very long time as a young woman entering the workforce. It's something that has concerned me personally, it's concerned me professionally, and it's concerned me politically. So as long as I've been involved with Mass Now, pay equality has been an issue that they've been pushing, and we were incredibly proud to have this bill finally get passed after working on it for such a long time.
That's the question too. With this bill, it's had a 2-year period, as I understand, right?
Yes.
It started in 2000. Well, this must have gone back a long way. I would have to think that they've been advocating for this for several years,
Since
many
the 90s,
years.
Since
the 90s, okay,
right.
for a very long time. And that's kind of like the way things go. I had the nurses here last, there's 20 years they were advocating to have more nurses staffing. Finally, it's going to be question 1 in November. But I think there was a 2-year lag, and what was that for? Like, so it passed in 2016, not the comparable pay, but the equal pay for women. And what happened in between 2016 and 18?
So we allowed, part of the legislation that was written and had a 2-year wait period to allow employers time to look at their records of pay that they're paying their employees, and basically find any inequities and rectify them, and also to do a pay audit. So if an employee in the future were to bring a suit against an employer and say, you are paying me less than a male counterpart, an employer could look at that pay audit and have sort of a legal leg to stand on, in a sense, because they had done that pay audit. But we needed to give the employers time to do that. And once we were able to get the Chamber of Commerce's endorsement, in January of 2016, the very next day, the Senate passed.
I have that right here as well.
Right.
Yes.
So it was really crucial for us to work with the business community on this and not isolate them, because working with businesses was really the only way that we were ever going to get this legislation passed.
So what were some of the contributions from Mass Now? I think I read that they tried to get a ban on credit being used against women.
That was something that we tried to get against anybody. we tried to get that put into place. It was something that did not make it into the final bill, but we thought that that was really important because it isolates certain kinds of people from moving up the ladder. And then we also, what we did contribute that made it into the bill, which is incredibly important and helps everyone, is employers are no longer able to ask for your salary history.
I was just going to ask that question.
Right.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that.
Beat you to it. So asking about your salary history is something that really benefits everybody. It doesn't just benefit women. It benefits, young people entering the workforce. It benefits minorities.
It's a competitive issue too. I think what happens is people come in and they ask them, well, what did you make in your last job? And they may try to give them the same salary, lowball them a little bit. And that's not a question that can be asked anymore, right?
It cannot. So if you're applying for a job and now that this law has gone into effect, an employer is asking for your salary history, you have every legal right to say, absolutely not.
So
and I got into the habit of saying no once this law was passed because I didn't feel comfortable.
So this not only helps women,
right?
It helps men as well.
Absolutely.
That's a great, I tell you, this is a wonderful bill that was passed. I'm glad they did that. You also hosted lobby days and phone banking. Want to tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Lobby days were really crucial in order to let legislators know that the people were behind this bill, to put some public pressure on them, and also to let the media know that this was a bill that was really important to our members and to legislators. So that was part of my role, was organizing those lobby days, staffing those lobby days, physically being in the building, helping volunteers get to their representatives' offices, having materials ready for them, having them prepared. We did, days of preparation beforehand where they learned to speak to their legislators. So that was always really exciting.
I can tell you this. From a personal note, because this happened to my mother. She worked for a local college and facilities maintenance. That's what she did for many years. Did a great job there, by the way. I'm not going to mention the college. But I can recall that there were many times we'd have this discussion about her pay and her salary, and she was with a lot of men. She was the only woman, and she did a fine job. She had a lot of buildings to attend to, and it was disheartening for her to have to deal with that. And I told my mother that we were going to do this show, and she's like, "Can I get retroactive salary now?"
It'd be nice.
Yes, but she was really a trailblazer in a sense, where she was working at the time, and people liked her, they respected her. So I can understand how difficult it can be, and I think this is a wonderful law. So once you heard, I think I saw a tweet that you had put out the day that this happened. I get so much information that goes by my phone in a day. How'd you feel about it? I mean, do you feel very satisfied just to be part of something like that?
I did. I felt satisfied. I felt very proud. Relieved a little bit that it was finally happening, but I know that this isn't the end of this. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of education to happen. The mayor's office is still doing salary negotiation workshops for women, so there's still things to
You mean the mayor's office in Boston?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you think we're doing here on the local level in Somerville? How do you feel about that? I'm sure that the
I'm
mayor's
not aware of anything particularly happening at the local level. Doesn't mean that it isn't happening. I'm just not. I might not. Just
I
not
think
be on my radar.
I think I just got a non-discrimination policy that was sent to me that's been updated. So I'm going to take a look at that. I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be a big part of it. And if it's not, I'm sure that they'll come up with something. I think one thing about Somerville, what they're very good at, is making these adjustments as time goes on, because it's a fantastic city, as you know.
Right.
And we love it. So I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer it if you want to answer it.
Okay.
Have you ever felt that you were discriminated against on a job when it comes to your pay? Do you think that you were being paid less than men?
So it's difficult for me to know that because I've never been in the habit of asking someone else what they had made. And this is part of the legislation.
Right.
Now employers cannot retaliate against somebody for asking a fellow employee what they're making.
Right.
But I was never in the habit of doing that. I can say what I have experienced having worked on political campaigns, which can be a bit of a boys' club, frankly, is that I've seen people younger than myself with less experience than myself, but male, be promoted higher than me purely because of a personal relationship or just because they sort of fit into the overall I don't know, boys club mentality feeling on particular
Yeah,
campaigns,
and you know what?
and
you know
it's
what,
very
too?
frustrating.
Yeah, you know what too, and one thing I want to say on that too is these are things that just have to stop, because it can't be just boys against the girls kind of a thing. I think we
Right.
have to look at. I want to preach to the choir here, okay, but coexist. You know,
Yeah.
we have to do this. We have to get this done. Now, this is an article now I had this for a year, okay.
It's in very good condition for
Can
being
anybody
a
see
year
that?
old.
Can you zoom in on that, Jude? Can you just take a, Jude, our technical assistant, does a fantastic job here. This is Boston Magazine. We'll work for 83 cents on the dollar. And I think this is, it was wonderful. We are going to put that up for you and make sure that you get we'll get the email article up there for you. That way you can read it, but it really is fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read something out of the Globe now, because I wanted to quote the other gentleman, John Becker, I believe his name was. This is from the Boston Globe. After 2 decades, Governor Charlie Baker signed a groundbreaking legislation designed to reduce pay discrimination. State and federal law already protects female workers from pay inequities. In Massachusetts, women on average make 83 cents for every dollar a man earns, census data shows. A group of lunch ladies from Everett, Massachusetts public schools demonstrated just how weak the state equal pay law was when they lost a heartbreaking case in 1998. These female employees filed a lawsuit against the school system, contending that their work was comparable to that of their male custodians, who made twice as much. The women initially were awarded close to $1 million in back wages, only to lose an appeal in a case that spanned a decade and went twice to the Supreme Court. Okay, so that's stunning. I can tell you right now, and I'm glad this happened. Another thing I want to talk about too here is, has Boston eliminated sexism in the workplace? Now you just hit on that. If that's what if that's where we're going to go with this, and I think on this show, I think what's important here is that we're not going to really, you know, we like to take the high road, but if it's real, it's real, and if it's real, we have to talk about it. So I like to always refer to news articles, and I always give people credit for what they've done, especially Boston Magazine. This is a very extensive article that they wrote here. So it says here, not even close. Local women are opening up the hurdles, barriers, and empty gestures in America's most progressive state. Okay, California is one of the only 3 pioneers. Rhode Island and New Jersey are the others to guaranteed paid maternity leave. New York is set to join this select group in 2018. California has a leg up on Massachusetts as another. So we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. How do you feel about, obviously it's a good thing to pay women on maternity leave. What's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
Paid family medical leave is incredibly important. It's definitely something that affects women, but it affects families as well, just like the wage gap. I think that when people think of the wage gap, they think of it as a women's issue, but the wage gap, pay equity, is a family issue, because if you're paying your women less, you're essentially telling a family that they can take home less money, and that affects the financial viability of an entire family.
So has your experience been that there's been a slow erosion of salaries over the years? Because it's my experience. I've seen it now. I mean, I do see a lot of younger people who are making tremendous amounts of money in this economy right now. And I see people who've decided to take on positions and make a career out of it, that they're, for whatever reason, they're being taken advantage of. And they're erosion, it's just an erosion that's a downhill thing, and they end up, you know, not making anything, being displaced, having to leave their home, having to leave the city of Somerville. It's going on with me and my members that I represent. It's going on with the police. It's going on in fire. It's going on with firefighters, custodians, everywhere. And it has to stop. And we hope that this is gonna, we're hoping, I'm gonna talk to the people at home right now, that you will tell your friends to watch this show and understand exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. And what we're trying to accomplish here is to show you many aspects of what goes on in labor every single day. And we intend to continue this, and we are not going to stop until we get something accomplished here. So we're very invested in labor right now. Is there anything that you're working on now on behalf of some of the groups that you represent that we should know about?
So in terms of what Mass Now is working on, and this is not what the PAC is working on, so we just had the election on Tuesday. The PAC endorsed several candidates, and so we were just all working on that, and it's very exhausting. Very happy that the election day is over. A
lot of exciting things happen in that election.
Very exciting election day,
yeah.
very upsetting, but a bit of an upset. But in terms of what legislation Mass Now is working on in the next session, I know that the Healthy Youth Bill is one that's very important.
What is I haven't heard that one.
Sure. So Healthy Youth Bill is about sex education, and it's really just pushing for sex education that's age appropriate, that's medically accurate, and it's something that's really needed in the state. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly important. It's going to really affect.
Well, you know, we have some incredible legislators in the city of Somerville. I'm not going to mention them all because I'm going to have to rattle. I will. I know them all, and they're wonderful. One thing I want to mention too is I have to mention Pat Jalen.
Incredible.
And the reason, yeah, she is. She's something else, isn't she? Right here at the Globe. If you look, this is a close up. Hopefully, we can zoom in a little bit. This is a great article with Pat, and she did it with Ellen Story. I apologize. Champions for Equal Pay for Women, and they really pushed hard on this as well too. So this is something. If you get an opportunity, read it because it's really something that's really, really important. So here's what I'm going to throw some numbers out here that I have. It's called the price of sexism. All right. So 12%. These numbers came from this magazine, Boston Magazine. 12%. How much the state's gross domestic product would grow by 2025 if we closed the wage gap. Okay, $17,062 is the cost of 1 year of infant care in Massachusetts. 77 cents, all right, not the 83 cents we just saw, because this is updated now, is a new estimate of the wage gap according to the Boston Women's Workforce Council. 6 cents worse than previous estimated. 46th, this is Boston ranking 46, just so you know. Boston's ranked in an American Express Open's 2016 list of top 50 cities for female entrepreneurs. Okay? Female entrepreneurs. The number 17,225 is the number of tech workers who left Boston for new jobs between 2011 and 2016. So that is stunning. What's going on right now? But you know what? If we can't complain. You have to complain in order to get things done. We have to voice our opinion here. The Boston Women's Workforce Council, we're going to also put that up so people can link on to that. We'll make sure we do that. The Boston Women's Workforce Council mission is to make Boston the best place in the country for working women by removing the visible and invisible barriers to women's advancement. And that's also important. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Okay, what do you know about them? Anything?
I've heard their name thrown around. I don't know a great deal
about them. Okay, I'm not putting you on the spot.
No, I don't want to give any misinformation on them.
Okay. So what they're saying is they work with businesses in the greater Boston area to do the following, all right? Eliminate the gender-based wage gap. 2, remove the visible and invisible barriers to women's advancement and ensure that 100% of the talent pool is used to make Boston the best area in the country for working women. Pretty good.
It's great.
All good stuff here. So, in closing, what have you got to, you want to add? Would you like to add something? I was just going
to say, when you hear those numbers, I think it's really important to also note that you hear the 83 cents on the dollar. That's for white women. So when you think about African American women and Latino women, they're making significantly less on the dollar.
Right.
So I think that people hear that number, and some people I have heard say, it's not that big a difference. I have heard people say that.
It's never that big of a difference if it doesn't affect you.
Of course.
Not in my
Also,
neighborhood.
I think 2 cents is a big difference over the span of a lifetime, but let's not get into the details of that.
Okay.
So regardless, there is significant difference when we're talking about people of color, women of color.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also really important to remember that those numbers are even more stark when you are talking about women of color. So this bill has the ability to bring up so many people, and if we are able to close that wage gap, it has the ability to bring up families. It's not just bringing up women. Women don't just come by themselves. They come with a family.
I agree with you, Kalin. I have to tell you, I mean, really, I mean, it's difficult to see some of the things that we have to see out there that goes on. In the city of Somerville itself, I've been talking about this now for the past few months, but I've been on this show, but I've been talking about affordable housing forever, okay? And we're looking for affordable housing here for everybody. One alderman said to me, look, we cannot have rich and poor. We have to have moderate, median income. We have to have that here. It has to happen. So, I really feel you. I feel where you're coming from with all of that. And that's something that's very important to us as well. I mean, there's a lot of minorities that are suffering out there that need to be taken care of in the city and in the state. I wish the rest of the country would react to it as well. I mean, California seems to be a city that's just, they're trailblazers as well. They're getting a lot of things done out there, And, the whole movement, the Bernie movement that we always talk about, that's changed so many things. That's changed the landscape in this city. It's changed what's happened at on the Board of Aldermen at that horseshoe. Mike Capuano, who was in office for 20 years, he was our mayor here for 10 years, tremendous politician who brought the orange line, brought the green line in here, worked really hard to get the city where it needs to be. And somehow I feel like we feel like it's forgotten. And we cannot forget the politicians past who've done so many things here. But I understand where the millennials are coming from. I do. I get it. I know what they want. I know they want to be included, and they have a plan. I've spoken to many of them now, and I understand the whole thing. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I think you've added a lot to the show. It's only a half-an-hour show, but we always reserve the right to bring our guests back as things change. At some point in time, I've written to Pat Jalen, and I'd love to have her on the show to talk to her, discuss this with her, and maybe some other things as well. In closing, I want to say one thing when it comes to women. I love Aretha Franklin. One of my favorites of all time. Being an older guy, growing up in Somerville, I listened to everything: disco, soul. It was what it was all about, and it talked about what we were going through and how we were suffering back then. She was the queen of soul. Respect, natural woman, do right woman, do right man. Think, I never loved a man the way I love you. Don't play that song for me because you lied. Chain of Fools, Dr. Feelgood, and Rocksteady. Well, that's how we're going to end the show. Rest in peace, Aretha. In unity there's strength. We love you. Thank you. Okay, as always, to end the show, we have to give out one of the SMEA Somerville Employees Association t-shirts. This is hot off the press. You cannot get them anywhere but here. You can't get them on eBay. Can't get them on Amazon. Forget about it, all right? This
eBay.
Is only, well, eBay, yeah, they're on eBay. They might be on, somebody might, you never know. You never know. All right, it's a great shirt. We love it. Only in Somerville. It means so many different things. It has so many different meanings, right? Mm-hmm. And it's going to expand, and it's just going to keep going on. So, Kalin, this is for you, Kalin Jordan.
Enjoy you so much.
All right. Thank you. And unity, there is
strength.
You got it. Thank you.